Hello once again and welcome to another episode of A Question of Law. This is Citi TV's legal education program, and on this show we seek to break down the law as regards various aspects of our lives, the various happenings in our lives and in the society at large. Now, I'm going to introduce my guest to you after a quick break. Don't go anywhere. My name is David Kwekusechi. It's A Question of Law. All right, welcome back again, and let me introduce my guest to you. Today we're going to have a conversation, very interesting one. Capital punishment is the topic that we're going to be talking about. And my guests today are Salam Adonu, who is a private legal practitioner, as well as Albert Kweshiga, who is also a private legal practitioner, as well as a law lecturer with the UPSA School of Law. Gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so how are you doing?
It's okay.
Yeah?
It's been a minute, but it's all right.
Yeah. No, it's been a minute with you, right?
It's good to be
Things
back.
are really happening very fast.
Yeah, it's a lot that's going on.
Keep pace, but
There's a lot that's going on. So there's one topic that doesn't ever get out of the public discourse, and that's the issue of capital punishment. What's our current legal framework, regarding capital punishment? Because I know it's been a while since anybody got hanged.
yes, anybody got killed through some process.
Yeah.
I think Ghana had its last execution sometime in 1993.
Okay.
And since then, we haven't had any. Although there are people currently on death row. As recent as 2021, Amnesty International reports that 7 persons were sentenced to death. But we do not know if they are really going to be executed. But let me say that we have inherited largely most of the laws in this country from our colonial masters. The British have handed down many things to us. In fact, the current law, which is our criminal, the law on criminal conduct, draws from the first criminal code of 1892.
Okay.
Wow. There's a British legacy. Okay. And not many things have changed. A number of things have changed, but not many have changed. And the current law is the Criminal and Other Offences Act of 1960.
1960.
And that's Act 29. And that law is, let me say, the reserve of all criminal conduct in the Republic. So if you take the law, you are told what is prohibited conduct and what the ingredients of those prohibited conducts are. And that there are consequences for engaging or indulging in such conduct.
Okay.
Some of the consequences can be fines. Some can be being under court supervision. Some can result in death sentences. Okay, so there are a number of provisions in the Criminal Offences Act and then the Constitution, which actually specifically mentions crimes and if you are found guilty, what should happen to you. And there's one thing about criminal law is that before a person is punished, the offense for which he's being punished must be stated clearly and the punishment prescribed.
Okay.
Otherwise, you cannot punish somebody for what he doesn't know. And so, death penalty has been ascribed to some conduct.
Yeah.
I mean, in the current part of the law, like in the Constitution, if you look at Article 3, it talks about treason. And treason is punishable by death. Treason is when you try to use some unlawful means to overthrow the democratic order, the state. And when you are found guilty after a trial, you will be convicted and sentenced to death.
Okay.
And the other offenses, like murder. If you commit murder, which is an intentional homicide, and you are found guilty after a process in which you have been heard, you may be condemned to death. And there are also crimes on gold and other things. I mean, all this come with, death penalty, which means that your existence in this world will have to be brought to an end in exercise or in fulfilling or in execution of a court judgment or a court finding. So basically, that's the framework we have.
I know piracy as well.
Piracy is also part of it, and so you see that death sentence is given in cases where the offenses are quite serious. All right. Although, as the program advances, I have views on whether or not some of those offenses should even have death penalty. And if I let me state without any equivocation at this point that I think that in the case of certain offenses, we should keep the death sentence. Okay, like a case of murder. If somebody has clearly taken the life of another intentionally, and he's been given the opportunity to be heard, and he's exhausted the entire appellate process, and he still hasn't been exonerated, and the end is for him to be put to death. Kuku, it's an eye for an eye.
You feel it should be done.
It's an eye for an eye in those situations, okay? Because I think that will be enough compensation for persons who have lost somebody or someone who has been killed intentionally by another. All right, so that's.
We'll come back and delve further into that. Solomon, what are your initial opening thoughts?
Yes, the capital punishment or death punishment or death sentencing, of course, it's been topical in the last few days. It's also part of the general penal system of our country. So it takes its roots in our part of the world from the Constitution, Article 13, which says that no person shall be deprived of his life intentionally, except in the exercise of the execution of a sentence of a court in respect of a criminal offense. And Albert is dealt with criminal offenses under the laws of Ghana, of which he has been convicted. So taking somebody's life is generally illegal, but if it is sanctioned by law, then that becomes different. That becomes lawful. So yes, it is a form of punishment that is expected to help reform society and reform persons. Punishments serve a lot of purposes. So this one is actually retributive, but it's also aimed at reforming society. So that if you know that if I do this, I'll be killed, then I better behave so I don't get into that situation. And it's also important to point out that before you get to that point, you have to go through a process. And that process should find you guilty. And your guilt is only established after they've been able to prove that you intended to commit that crime before you went ahead to commit it. The mens rea, which is a guilty mind, and then that guilty mind must coincide with what we call the actus reo, which is the prohibited action. So when these two coincide, then it means that you actually intended to commit that crime, which has led to the death of another person or any crime which attracts death.
Is that what you would refer to as premeditated?
So that's premeditated. You thought about it, you intended to do so. So it's not as if something happened and the person just died. That becomes a different thing. But we're talking about death penalty. So before death penalty is pronounced on somebody, then the process, the court process, or the judicial process, or the justice process should satisfy itself that the person indeed had the intention to commit the crime before going ahead to commit that crime. And that is really important. So yes, the discussion is growing to abolish or to retain. I share similar views with Albert. My view really is that if it's not broken, you don't change it.
Fix it.
The law has been there since 1993. Nobody's been executed.
No, let's discuss that part.
I think
what's going on there.
I think it should remain. I think it should remain.
Yeah.
The mere fact of it remaining on the books also serves as deterrence to people, because you know that you could be killed if you do it. They will sentence you anyway. They may not execute you, but tomorrow we can have a leader who will decide to sign a warrant and get you executed. I think the law should remain. It serves as enough deterrence. What I also think is that we should look at it so we can fine-tune it and let it apply to very aggravated situations. Like an armed robber comes to your house, gun blazing, kills everybody, rapes people, and those kinds of things. If you tell me such a person should not be killed, then I will have a problem. You understand? So that is very aggravated. And in a case like that, killing the person gives the victims some sense of justice. You know, they get closure and things like, and the law is there to serve those purposes as well. So yes, I don't think it should be abolished outrightly. Rather, I think it could be fine-tuned, but the law must remain on the books, especially as we've not actively used it. But I think it serves a purpose by hanging around the books.
Well, let's take a look at the arguments for and against. There are people who are arguing and saying that it must be abolished. It's been abolished in some countries around the world. They feel it has to be abolished in Ghana as well. And some people are quite vocal when it comes to that. As is quite obvious, you've already said here that both of you feel that for some reason it should exist. Can we look at the arguments for and against the abolishment of...
So let me, you know, the discussions that preceded the evolution of this whole idea of crime, has been interesting, actually, I have to say. There are some people who initially thought that people are born criminals. And that, you know, people took the view that if we were born with certain features, you were predisposed to become a criminal. It was a widely held view in the early days of criminal, you know, evolution of criminal law, you know. And other people to take the view that people are not really born criminals, but society makes them criminals. And so,
I think it's common saying that no man born thief, society makes them thief.
Excellent. Yes. So the question is that, at least I'm trying to make a point for those who are saying we should abolish it. So if a person was not born criminal and the society that has made him so, why should the same society want to take the life of somebody it has created instead of trying to reform the person? It's a very sound argument, because if you are a proponent or if you are an apostle of the view that people are born good, but society makes them bad, sometimes turns them into serial killers. I mean, society should be concerned in undoing the conditions that brought about that human being, or that created the human being. And so it would be unfair to take the life of, you know, such a person. Some people say that, and there are many examples around the world, some people take the view that there could be some cases of miscarriage of justice, where, for instance, because of false accusation and official impropriety, some people will be convicted for a crime they never committed, and then they'll be sentenced to death. It may turn out later on that some explosive evidence will come out to show that the guy you convicted really never committed the offense. And so if you had already executed him, you cannot bring back that life. You can't bring back life. Do you get it? And that's a very sound argument. For those who argue for the abolition of, you know, capital punishment, it's a very strong argument. Sometimes it's very difficult to go around. Look, in the United States, right, since 1972, the Death Penalty Information Center, right, has been documenting exonerations, i.e., persons who were on death row but have subsequently been, exonerated. I mean, since 1992, there have been at least 190 people who have been exonerated.
Which means they could easily have been executed.
They could easily have been, executed.
And they did.
But so now they are free people. In fact, it's very interesting to note that just last month, right, there's a gentleman who was exonerated for the first time in the history of this world through a DNA 30 years ago, right? He was convicted for a crime and he was on death row. But 30 years ago, DNA came out and showed that he had nothing to do with the crime. So these situations can happen where there can be miscarriage of justice. And it's a very serious issue in the United States, where official misconduct and false accusations and bad representation by lawyers have led to people being convicted. So really, it is good to give these people the opportunity. They also say that these people can reform while they are in prison. It is true. We know the story of G-Man, right?
Our very own G-Man.
Now, in the face of all this argument, you have to ask yourself, How about those glaring situations where somebody kills somebody before you, where it is obvious that this person killed the other person, he intentionally took the life of that person?
Yeah.
Do you leave that person also? I think there's this view of retribution. There's a lot talked about it. And that's usually the view I hold when it comes to, putting capital punishment. If you take the life of somebody, especially in aggravated situations, you should also, suffer the same fate. Even the Bible talks about it. In Leviticus, it mentions that. In Exodus, there's this principle of an eye for an eye. And so we can talk about the arguments and all that. And the arguments for abolition are quite compelling. But there are also situations which can whittle down the strength in that argument. Look, Ghana is a signatory to a number of international conventions. Even if you look at the most popular one, the International Covenant on Political and Civil Rights, Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR, for instance, to which Ghana is a signatory. It tells you about death sentence, but does not injunct you not to apply it. It gives you conditions under which it should be applied. Okay, so I think it's a matter of country discretion to want to keep it on your books and all that. And so there are arguments for and there are arguments against. I think that when it comes to the case of some serious offenses like murder, right? I think the argument, for capital punishment collapses in the face of the arguments, against it. That's
So the talk about scrapping the death sentence or capital punishment, it's an overhaul of, it will be an overhaul of our criminal justice system in a way, right from the Constitution. Wanting to do that will require, first of all, you to do a constitutional amendment. Because I just read to you Article 13.1, which allows people to be killed lawfully. So before you do a thing like that, you must go through the process to amend the Constitution. So the Constitution, once amended, then it can flow to other laws. That's important. The arguments, of course, the arguments can always be compelling, but there's also a part called justice for the victims or for the persons who have been affected by the actions of the person we are seeking to pardon, or the person we are seeking to parry, person's punishment we are seeking to parry. What happens to the person whose child or whose brother or wife or husband is being killed in a very aggravated manner? I mean, how do you ensure closure? We all talk about it, we talk about it in the media. After all is said and done, the person goes home to live. And look at this situation of the young lady whose husband was killed in the Ablekuma bullion van incident. Look at the gruesome manner in which the guy was killed. This is a guy who was working for the state, killed in a line of duty by persons who obviously had meditated that was what they were going to do. You realize that just when they cast up, they went straight to the police officer, shot him a number of times, got what they wanted, and ran away. Now we've all spoken about it. We've almost forgotten. Of course, the matter is in court. The police, I don't know if it's got into court. No, I think they've been to court. There's been issues of bail, etc. The investigations are still ongoing, but the widow and the child of that guy, will be left perpetually with a scar. Ensuring that these guys are caught and dealt with in the manner that is befitting will bring some closure to the family of the deceased. Okay, it will also serve to deter people from engaging in things like that. Look at these guys. They go and smoke things and they come and do anything at all. What do you want to do to them? That was very aggravated. If we don't kill them too, then I think we'll be causing persons or victims a lot of injustice. Some crimes, yes, we can look at them. We can apply the life imprisonment, thing, long sentences, etc. But for very aggravated offenses, the arguments may be flowery, the arguments may be nice, maybe human rights, etc. We are lawyers, all right? But if it is aggravated, I think the law should remain. The law has always been there. And I'm not sure anybody has complained about being killed, etc. But when it becomes critical and a decision has to be taken, that decision should be taken. Nobody should tie anybody's hands. The law shouldn't tie anybody's hands. That person should be able to take that decision and take it well. In fact, the fact that it's not been applied for about 30 years now means that, or should mean that anybody who wants to apply or exercise that right of applying that law now will have to do it very carefully. That person will not do it lightly, will do it thoughtfully, which means that the margins of error to a very large degree will be reduced.
So it's not a problem for you per se that for over 30 years we've not applied it yet. You're saying it should still stay on the books even if we have not applied it.
But you know, if it's not broken, you don't let's leave it that way. At least in somebody's mind, I know when I do this, I could be sentenced to death.
Yeah.
And that alone is deterrent enough. That is deterrent enough. Look at this. There were some criminals there was this guy from Nakpandur, is it Kombiat or so, who terrorized terrorized the whole town.
Yeah.
Killing people, stealing, moving across Ghana, Togo, doing a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
And such a person who has killed many people. And they did it, without shame. They did it because they thought it was their right to kill people and steal from places. You arrest such a person, and a lot of the things he did before the eyes of the public, and you say you don't want to take his life. He has taken many, many lives. I think such people are not fit to even live amongst us. And why should the state continue to be spending a lot on them when they are somewhere? I mean, I think for such people, the law should remain so that it will be left to the powers that be to want to exercise the application of that law or not.
We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we want to talk about what international practice is, what different countries are doing, and so on. How does ours look in juxtaposed to other nations and so on, and delve a bit further into it, and then see what it is when we talk about amendments. How should the law be framed? If we're going to keep it, how should it be adjusted? And so on and so forth. So we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll delve into further conversations. It's a question of law. Citi TV is live on DSTV. Find us on channel 363. On GoTV, we're on channel 117. And on HD Plus, get us on channel 108. On a digital TV, run a new search, but take note that without an antenna, you cannot access Citi TV. Citi TV can be accessed on any free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and HD Plus boxes. Citi TV, it's your world. All right, welcome back. It's still a question of law. Now, of course, the show is interactive, so we do want to hear from you throughout the show. Use the hashtag a question of law for us to hear what you're thinking on our social media streams. If you want to send us a message, please do so with the WhatsApp line 0204-447-033. All right, so we're talking about capital punishment, and want to delve a little further into the conversation. Let's talk about the international practice, and because again, the push or the cry for abolition does not exist in Ghana alone. It's something that maybe I can even say that we've sort of picked up from what others have been doing internationally. I feel that people's main issue is that in case we make a mistake, you've taken somebody's life. And for me, that's the biggest argument that I've heard so far. In case we make a mistake. I know there's treason, I know there's piracy, which doesn't make any sense to me. Of course, unless there's murder as a result of the piracy. Murder, that I agree with. But treason, and then there's one about the sale smuggling of gold.
I don't know where that's from.
Yeah, no, I know where it's coming from. I'm just saying that for me, it's like the laws were crafted at a certain time, and we never really did much to make them relevant to who we are as a people. You know, let's talk about what international practice is, what the general drive is towards abolition. You know, how it's been, and where we're going, what we need to do as a nation ourselves, looking at what our law says currently.
Okay, cool. So there are about 200 countries that make up the United Nations, about 198 generally. And if you look at the records that we have, generally put out by Amnesty International. Amnesty International is a human rights group, and they are very big on abolition of capital punishment. And they tell you that there are together over 100 countries, let's say 144 countries that have, you know, done something about capital punishment, which means that those countries which have abolished capital punishment, you know, for any crime, right, are in the majority. There are fewer countries which continue to keep death penalty
on the books.
On the books, and Ghana is one of them. China is one of them. Iran is one of them. Egypt in Africa is one of them. Saudi Arabia and Syria are all part of those countries which have not, you know, taken those out of their books. Now, in some of those countries, although the laws are there, and there are some other countries where the laws are there, like Ghana, but they haven't done any executions. And I have to tell you, now in the United States, there are about 50 states in the US. I think about half of those states
they still have the capital.
Still have the capital punishment. And that's the United States of America, one of the most advanced democracies in the world. There must be a reason why some states don't want to completely, you know, abolish death sentence or capital punishment. So if you ask me about the international trajectory, I will say that campaigners are pushing for its total abolition, and we've made that point already generally. But on what basis is this push being done? I've told you that there is a law which there's an international treaty, which is the international the Covenant for Civil and Political Rights. And Article 6 of that tells you about death penalty. And I'm saying that that law does not say that all states should abolish. All right, but it gives you a sense that death penalty should only be imposed in the most grievous of situations. And so, I mean, if Ghana were to keep that on its books, right, Ghana would not be violating any international convention. Unless, of course, there's an amendment to, there's a protocol to that, which was passed yesterday that I have not seen. But with the current state of the law, I think countries have a discretion to decide what it is. Now, what I think we can do, and I think we are all agreed on that, is that we can look at some of the, you know, offenses, for instance. Because seriously, I do not consider treason as a very serious offense for which somebody must die. You understand me? Like I told you, treason is where people try to, you know, upset the constitutional order.
But isn't it for the level of the gravity of what the repercussions may be?
It's
right? A treasonous act.
Yes.
The repercussions of that.
But that's the point. But how often do people commit treason?
Yeah, but it exists.
But you see,
so it's
yes, it exists. But I think that if people commit treason, the best punishment you can give them is to put them away, keep them life sentence. Then they remain in custody. They will not be able to plan any further treason on the Republic. Now, and I'm arguing this way because, you see, I mean, the treason is quite interesting. There are a lot of things that, you know, happen in this country where public office holders have done grievous things which undermine the Constitution. But most of them still walk around the place. Do you understand me? And so I'm thinking that treason is serious, but you can put the people away. You should not take their lives. And as far as I'm concerned, there are, for me, two situations which I think you should deal with people. Well, I mean, exercise the option of capital punishment. I think if it has to do with what? Murder. And as for murder, I'm not moving from there. So when you kill, you must be killed. There's no two ways about that. Okay? And I consider maybe piracy. Piracy is a very grievous offense, all right? Because piracy may result in what? Death. So as long as there is death, for instance, somebody must die. But in any other situation, for instance, the gold smuggling of gold, and all those things. And as I told you before, these kinds of laws have their roots in British criminal justice,
colonial era.
And I refer to the first criminal code we had in this country of 1892. A number of these offenses are there. We took it hook, line, and sinker. In fact, this law actually applied for a long time until 1960, when we actually had our Republican criminal code and all that. So as far as I'm concerned, there are some offenses which must go with death. There should be few, but a lot of those other offenses should not go with death.
All right, so before you come in and answer, let me just create a scenario for you. So Albert is saying that there are crimes such as smuggling of gold, such as treason. He feels they are not grave enough, right, to warrant capital punishment. I'm going back in time and thinking the framers of this law, right, their intention. I feel as though probably anything that would upset the integrity of the state, the stability of the state, be it economically or any other way, right? They felt it was grave enough because, again, think about it. If the economy is derailed, it means hospitals are going to have challenges. It means people will die. It means roads will not be built. It means people will die. It means it's almost like a ripple effect, but not the immediate.
Then we might as well make corruption itself an offense for which death sentence should be imposed.
I mean, I'm just thinking about. So I don't know what you make of what you make of it.
Well, I can understand the issue about treason and all of that, but I think so. The framers of the Constitution, and you must know the socio-political context within which the particular Constitution we are talking about was developed. It was developed from a military regime, and so all those things were done with some. There was some, I don't want to call it paranoia, but there was a certain background to all of that. So I mean, toppling the government and all of that, these are grave. But since we started the democracy, how many times have we had these attempts for which you want to kill people? It's a very serious matter, all right, if somebody used to do it. But people do it. How about if they succeed? If they succeed in toppling the state, which you've seen many times, do you get to punish them? You don't get to punish them. You only get to punish them only if they don't succeed. All right. So I think we can look at that. Maybe reduce that to life imprisonment. Okay, and focus on murder, things that take people's lives. Of course, toppling a government, people's lives may be lost, but the lives that may be lost most likely, almost immediately around the execution of the toppling of the state, will be military people or will be security people who are trained to fight for the state. It is not good for them to die, but that really is their job. So to extend that to the general public and say hospitals, people will die, a lot of things will happen. Yes, same for other things, like you mentioned, like how about corruption?
For example.
We are suffering because of a lot of corruption. Inflation of contracts, figures and all of that. That denies the state of money that we will need to build hospitals to save, our children and save the sick, etc. So there are also grievous offenses. I think that we should limit the death penalty to very aggravated offenses like murder. If you take somebody's life, your life should also be taken. That is how I want to look at it. I think it's a discussion that must continue. I don't think we should be in a hurry to want to take this off the books because we are getting some pressure from some international NGOs, etc. No, we don't have to. We have to grow at our own pace.
Okay.
We don't have to force it. The growth must be organic. Russia is one of those countries that has abolished death penalty. Yeah, but what is the record in that country? Are we saying that because Russia, for example, has abolished death penalty, they don't kill people there or things like that don't happen? America, beacon of democracy and all the nice things we say, they have death penalty on their books. There should be a reason why death penalty is still there. Let's grow at our own pace.
Yeah.
Let's grow organically. If we grow to a point where we realize that, okay, we have to do this, it will come naturally and to come organically. Let's not force it. If we force it, that is where there will be a problem. Like I said, I don't see any reason why we'll be in a hurry to take it off the books. It's been on the books since 1993. It serves a purpose. Let's keep it there. Nobody's been executed since 1993, but it serves a purpose by being there. The retributive, nature of it, helps reform society, and I think it's very, very important.
Look, let me tell you something. Okay, many years ago, when I was growing up at Teshinungwa, there used to be a place called Video Connection. This used to be a cinema center. It's very popular at the time, and I'm going to talk about this advisedly. And there was a young man who was quite popular. I think he used to work at the video center. I think he had a disagreement with a young man, okay? Let me say called S. I think the disagreement was so heated that they had some exchanges. And the guy who would eventually become the killer was so upset. He left, went home. Much later in the evening, he came back to the place with broken bottles. Wow. When the other guy was not looking, he stabbed him many times at the back of the neck. And this is a story many years ago. And we actually knew the people who were involved in that. I thought it was a very serious thing, right? But I remember, I think that the S guy who actually committed the offense of murder and had been in prison for a long time. He was actually convicted for the offense, but he had not been executed. I heard recently that he probably passed on somewhere along the line. But I'm just trying to tell you that, look, some people, you cannot just take somebody's life, and then when you have done that, you would still be living, you'll still be breathing. The state will be spending money on you, taking care of you in prison custody. Your family will be coming, bringing food to you in the prison. How about the person who has died? And someone raised that issue. Look at this Bullion Van gentleman, the police officer. I heard his wife. I heard how influential he was to the family in terms of making provisions for the family and all that. Now, do you know what? Do you know the trigger or the number of the consequences that are going to be occasioned because of this?
The ripple effects.
The ripple effects are going to be many. It is possible that because the man is no longer there, and there's probably no proper scheme in place to take care of the family with his young children, that boy could drop out of school.
Well, I mean, it happens. So.
It happens. I've heard many people say, because my father died, I couldn't continue school. He could take up a habit. Look at the rippling effects on society. And so, as for that, I'm very strong on that one. But I just want to say that Selom said, look, let us grow. Let us do things at our own pace. Let us not be brought under so much international pressure and say that. Look, my friend Susu, Honorable Susu, is pushing this bill. But I think there are other aspects that he has to look at. And I want to just say this again for the sake of emphasis. That if God forbid, if my wife or my sister was killed by another in front of me, although putting him to death, putting the other person to death will not bring my relation back, but I will have closure. I'll be satisfied. I'll feel that he has received
justice
his just deserved. He's been served what he's supposed to have gotten. I'll go knowing that I've lost the person, but I'll go with some peace. Do you understand me? And so we should be measured about some of this international pressure and how they come to us and all that. After all, there are more important things to deal with at this particular time. I think we should.
So. In any case, the sudden push for this, what's triggering it? What's the trigger? I mean, there are more important things we can be dealing
No, but
with.
it's Honorable
You know.
Sosu's human rights instincts which are pushing generally this is going on.
See, again, I think
Yes.
I want us to
Yeah.
situate it properly, because you see, every time we say human rights, it's almost as if some people somewhere are pushing for something that we don't want. But even the right to speak freely in Ghana is a human right.
Yes.
Right? The human rights is not some ethereal something out there that is like, somebody is imposing on us. It's about allowing everybody to have fair and equal, existence and treatment. Really, isn't
Yes,
it?
that's
really
it is.
what it is.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
really. So there's human rights.
Yes.
But the person whose life has been taken, that person didn't have a right to live.
He did.
And so you have taken the life.
Yeah.
But you have
now
the right
you
to
are
live.
arguing human rights.
Yeah.
So it's a retribution bit, the eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth.
Generally speaking, what do you feel about our criminal justice system in terms of fairness and equity? How do you feel?
Well,
Generally speaking.
I do a lot of criminal defense. My experience so far is that sometimes our judges do not pay attention to some details. And I have to say that our judges do not pay attention to some details. I think if they paid more attention to some little details, maybe innocent people would not go to prison, for instance. There's something which is gradually becoming part of our criminal justice system. There's this whole thing about case management. They need to rush cases. Okay, so there is a criminal matter in court, and because of the complaints that there are generally delays in the system, I think the institution is trying to ensure that cases are dealt with expeditiously. But in dealing with cases expeditiously, there could also be miscarriage of justice.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I do not feel that it's proper for an accused person who is being tried in court, for instance, and a lawyer who's defending him to appear in court every day.
Really?
To appear in court every day on that same matter.
It doesn't give you time to even...
It doesn't give you time to re-strategize, to prepare, to think. You're exhausted. Criminal trials can be very exhausting. You get the point I'm making? And so, yes, criminal justice system, there are times that I've done cases where I've received judgment, and I'm happy that I got it. But other times when I don't get it, I'm asking myself, maybe the judge should have looked at this. So generally, we can do better. And I have to tell you, and when I say that there are problems in the system, it's not only peculiar to Ghana. In the United States, if you look at the Death Penalty Information Center, it's a national non-governmental organization.
Okay.
They've been reporting on death sentence, the figures since 1992. And they have looked at some of the problems in the system that have led to wrong convictions. And some of the problems are here.
Yeah.
Do you understand me? So there are problems that we can look at.
I think it was you that made a comment on, I'm not sure whether it was a big issue or a different show that you were watching, talking about the fact that in the US, for example, there are records to show that the existence of the death penalty does not take away the proliferation of crime. It's almost like the fact that you have the death. This was actually Susu, who you were referring to. He made a comment because I said there were actually records that showed that the existence of the death penalty didn't reduce the amount of crime in the states where the death penalties existed. Let's just wrap up this conversation on this one.
Well, there are a lot of factors that will lead somebody to commit a crime. Okay, a lot of factors. So one, you can't say the presence of one, should influence everything, or the absence of one should influence everything. Okay. It's a number of factors, some very influential, others not.
Yeah.
So yes, that could be factual. I've not seen the report. I've not seen the research. That could be factual, but that does not also mean that keeping it there, we are not using it, right? But it serves a purpose. It serves to deter people, more or less. It doesn't mean that the fact that elsewhere it's not happening that way, we should we should ferry the same thing here. Our systems are different.
Yeah.
The systems of the US, and people often make the comparison. The US is not Ghana.
No.
What I can get done in the US, I cannot get it done in Ghana.
Yeah.
Maybe what I can get done in Ghana, I cannot get it done in the US. So when they are fashioning their laws, they fashion the laws, to reflect their socio-cultural, socio-economic situation.
Yeah.
And so we don't have to sit in Ghana with all our problems or with all our positives
Yeah.
and go and carry something. There are some problems we don't have in Ghana.
Yeah.
So we can't go and carry something they are using to solve a
impose
problem
it
there
on us.
because it has
Yeah.
to be done.
Yeah.
We have to be careful about the comparison. We talk about best practices. But I also want to always bring to the fore what we call best fit.
Yeah.
You should look at what fits your system. Once it is not illegal, once it's not creating problems, that is your solution.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be in a hurry to copy best practice because it is best practice. It may be best practice, but there's best fit which sometimes works better than best practice.
No, I think you've put it quite succinctly, and I think I agree with what you've just said, because I look at a country like Singapore, for example. Singapore has at least 31 different offenses that you can fall under capital punishment, including drug trafficking. Drug trafficking, terrorism, some of the things that we will slap people on the wrist for, put them in life imprisonment or maybe 15 years in jail. They are receiving death, a penalty for it, and they will execute. It's not death row forever. So anyway, well,
but before we go, let me just make a point. Now, criminal laws are also territorial. Okay, apart from those crimes which go beyond boundaries, like genocide and other things.
Yeah.
I mean, generally, a state determines what constitutes a crime. So I just want to add to what Selom said. Okay, so there are some conducts, for instance, which may be criminal in one jurisdiction, but may not necessarily be criminalized in another. And I think we have to look at that also.
Yeah. All right, fantastic. Well, don't go anywhere. The docket is coming up shortly. Citi TV is live on DSTV. Find us on channel 363. On GoTV, we're on channel 117. And on HD Plus, get us on channel 108. On a digital TV, run a new search, but take note that without an antenna, you cannot access Citi TV. Citi TV can be accessed on any free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and HD Plus boxes. Citi TV, it's your world. All right, welcome back, and it's time for the docket. Now, today on the docket, we have a question of law. I am a first-year law student at a prestigious faculty in our country. Recently, during a casual gathering with some colleagues, an old friend approached our group, and we engaged in a lively conversation covering various topics ranging from career paths, politics, to reminiscing about old classmates, music, and movies. Amidst the enjoyable exchange, my old classmate posed a question that caught me off guard. He asked whether there is a law in Ghana restricting individuals from possessing in excess of 1 million Ghana cedis in physical cash at their premises. Another colleague mentioned the Ghana Currency Control Act, but my research yielded no concrete evidence or official references. Seeking your expertise, please. Could you kindly shed light on the existence, scope, and implications of the Ghana Currency Control Act or any other relevant laws governing currency possession in Ghana? Wow, that's a big one and quite relevant in these times.
Well,
Gentlemen, I don't know who wants to start with this.
Okay. Well, I guess this conversation has been brought about because of news-making rounds,
Recent happenings
in our country involving a Minister of State. I guess that's the context of that discussion. And well, what did the person mention? The Ghana
Currency Control Act.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have been trying to look at a number of laws actually concerning this whole issue. My objective for searching is to find out if there is any clarity at all on whether or not there is prohibition on possessing, on having in your custody physical cash worth over $1 million US dollars. I may be wrong, but my search did not bring up any specific law. Okay, and so the laws that have been mentioned, I think, deal with a number of transactions concerning foreign currency.
Okay, but
as to whether or not a person in the country can possess that much, I do not think I've seen any law. But I have to say that it would be unconstitutional for any law to actually provide that you cannot keep a certain amount on you in the house.
Really?
Because you have the right to property.
Okay.
And cash is property, is it not? Or so
Yeah.
Is cash not part of property? Cash asset. So, I mean,
in fact, when you look at the charge sheet,
Yes.
in the recent matter, when you look at the charge sheet, in the particulars of offense, the money was described as being the property
excellent.
of
Yeah.
Excellent.
So-
So it's property, and the law guarantees the right to property. Now, though the law guarantees the right to property, the law says that property can be taken under certain circumstances.
Okay.
I mean, if the property is connected to crime, or the property must be taken for the public good. I mean, these are general framework for the law. Okay, but I haven't come across any law. I mean, I've been trying to check other jurisdictions whether there's a cap on how much you can keep, and for good reason. Most countries do not have a cap on how much you can keep on you at home. People keep money on them for various reasons. Okay, I think the argument against keeping money on you in the house is based on other considerations. You expose yourself to all kinds of threats and all kinds of challenges. And so I don't know if Salem has come across a law that says specifically, but I haven't. And I think it would be unconstitutional if there was any law that sought to, impose
so
a limit on what you can keep on you.
I came up with across the Exchange Control Act.
Yes.
And that's more to do with Forex.
Forex,
and
yes.
the trading in
of
Forex.
Yes.
That's not keeping cash necessarily.
Excellent.
Your
Excellent.
own cash.
Yes,
So I've not seen a law. I've tried to also look around to see if there's any such law. I've not seen any such law. But I think as it stands, I think it's more persuasive than codified law. Okay. So if you keep a lot of money at home, you attract other things, criminals, etc. So you can imagine that in the current case we are discussing, the minister's house, this house helps, for example, decide to be in league with some criminals because there's money there, so they can come and take it. That would be very bad. That would be very devastating. That would be.
I never really thought about that angle.
Yes,
because
that would be very bad because the girls doing this could have, called in some colleagues to come and rob.
Yeah.
They could come when the people were at home.
A lot
or
more
not.
than the 1 million would have gone.
So for things like that and the implication of robberies and crimes on the state generally, for reasons of that nature, it's in our interest to keep the money away. Yeah. And when you keep the money away, you give others the opportunity to work with that money. Money goes round, it comes back to you, etc. So there's a way money works. I think these are the general considerations. But to say you want to make it a law that you can't keep X amount of money in your house, that I think is a bit of a stretch.
Is that not the reason why
we're
also trying to go cashless?
No, so the cashless is for convenience and for crime purposes and all of that.
Cash
printing cash, cost of printing
Human
cash and all of that.
Cash.
Yes, that's it. But not to keep the money in the house. And I'm not sure the cashless thing has a crime to it. It's not penal.
No.
That if you keep cash, it's just for convenience purposes. So it's a persuasive
to track expenditure,
to track expenditure, and the policy. One of the policy considerations really would be to stem money laundering and follow cash.
Yeah.
Because if it is cash, it's difficult to follow. But if it is if you are operating in a cashless
online
system,
footprint.
online, etc., you're able
all over the
to
place,
you're able to track the cash and know where it came from, where it's going, etc. And that for government is good because it helps government know where things are going. And for even tax purposes, government always needs money. So if the money is moving in the system, government at every point will be getting taxes, etc. So these are the considerations. However, what I know you cannot do is to travel with money beyond a certain amount for reasons of money laundering, etc. But to keep the money in your own house for your own, purposes. Money you have not stolen, money you have acquired legally. I have not seen any law that prohibits that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, it's time for the legal trivia for today.
Legal trivia. Did you know any person who wants to naturalize and become a Ghanaian must, amongst other factors, prove that he is able to speak and understand an indigenous Ghanaian language and has made or is capable of making substantial contribution to the progress of Ghana. This can be found in Section 14(1)(e) of the Citizenship Act 2000, Act 591. Take note and do the needful.
Hope you enjoyed the show today. It's been exciting. Very emotive conversation, emotive topic that we've been trying to handle today on the show. Hope you've learned a bit from the conversations that we've had today. Well, I had today with me Selom Adonu, who is a private legal practitioner, as well as Albert Kwashiga, also a private legal practitioner and a law lecturer at the UPSA School of Law. My name is David Kwekusechi. This has been A Question of Law.